All right, guys. So what I wanted to do is kind of, before we have the test tomorrow, I wanted to just take a couple questions that are on the test. Let's break them down and let's see how you think you're going to do on the test. If you, as we go through these, if you're anticipating and you're breaking it down and you get the correct answer, then you're probably going to do well. If you don't, then you're probably not. So these are some things and these are some strategies that I wanted to kind of go over you as you look and kind of identify certain types of questions. So checking for understanding, here's one of the first questions you're going to see on your test. So question 1, journalists who work to expose abuses of corporate power helped to gather public support for regulation and reform during the Progressive Era. This is a specific definition of a term. This is a level 1 question. Here's the definition. What is the answer? And we have A, yellow journalists, B, Wally workers, C, muckrakers, D, alarm snatchers. Now, of these 4 on here, you've only heard of 2 of these terms, and 1 term is specifically designed and associated with the Progressive Era. So if you have word association, if you remember the exact definition, if there are things in here that you're beginning to see as you look at this question, that should help lead you and guide you to the answer. And of course, the answer here is C. Correct. Muckrakers. This is a level 1 base question that we're looking at. Now, when we go here, now we're starting to have to combine information that we've learned. So, as we look here, which of the following was not a progressive response to political machines that controlled local governments during the Gilded Age? Whoa, Coach Coffey, what are you talking about? Well, remember we had our problem solution chart, and we had one of the problems was the political machines. So now we not only have to know the definition of what a recall, or settlement houses, referendum, and initiative, we now also have to associate each one of those with a problem during the Gilded Age that was addressed by progressive reform. And we not only have to do that, we then have to say this one was not a response. This is when you start to have to get in, you have to apply information. You have to say, okay, this was for this, this was for this, this was for this, this was for this, and see where the matchup occurs. And so as we go through this, I have to say, all right, political machine, what was that? Well, those were the institutions that, through political fraud, kind of controlled the city. So how did the Progressive Era try to solve this? Well, what is a recall? Well, recall was an election on someone that people didn't support. We thought was doing a bad job. That occurred. That is one. So that's not the answer. Settlement house. What was a settlement house? Settlement house, I think of Jane Addams. Settlement house was something to help kind of the poor immigrants that are coming in. I don't necessarily associate with political machines. That's more of like overpopulation. Referendum. This gave more power to the people to vote on issues. Initiative, initiate issues. All those 2 sound like political issues. So I think, and I'm pretty sure that it is settlement houses, and that is correct. Settlement houses was not a response. Recall, referendum, initiative were responses. So we have to be able to apply that information. See how long that took? That took about a good minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes just to break that question down. That takes time. Now, here's another kind of getting back into that level 1 area. How did the NAACP try to achieve equality and defeat Jim Crow laws? This is something that this is just a specific fact. This was, there's really one question for this, and we know while the Progressive Era failed with overruling Jim Crow laws, we do know that the institution, the NAACP, was formed, and they were going to use the court system to try to overturn Jim Crow laws. All right? And of course, we will eventually see that happen a little bit later on. Now, here is a prompt question. These are the type of questions that I talk about, that you have to look at something and then you have to apply information to figure out the answer. So what this says is the above book titles all describe reasons for which of the following events. We have Spain versus Cuba, America's role. Explosion of the USS Maine. Yellow journalism, the impact of America. Now, this goes back and says the American Revolution. Well, God, Coach, we haven't talked about that in ages. Correct. So that's not the answer. Now, Mexican-American War, Spanish-American War, Great War. This is where I have to be able to apply specific terms to kind of get into where when have we talked about a conflict with Spain and Cuba? Well, we have to specifically be able to identify that and the U.S. getting involved, the explosion of the USS Maine with the Spanish-American War. This is fact-based content, looking at historical facts and applying them to figure out the answer. That is exactly what you have to be able to do. And of course, you conclude the answer is the Spanish-American War. So this is where we have to say, okay, this is the title of a book. Well, titles of a book kind of tell you what the book's about. So there's just a lot of information that you have to do to come up with this information. You have to apply, you have to think, critical thinking skills. Now, here's another example, okay? Here's another example. And I'm pretty sure I didn't fix this, so we'll make sure we give the right answer. We have an outline. So which of the following would best complete the outline above? All right, well, so an outline has like a topic, then it has bullet points which describe what's going on. Well, let's look at this. Addition to the Monroe Doctrine, okay? Stated the U.S. had the right to intervene in Latin American countries in economic crisis, whether or not a European power plant. The United States was now labeled as protectors of the Western Hemisphere. Actually, I should dare change that because it's the police now of Western Hemisphere to get the correct answer. And of these, again, this is just a general summary of one of the words. While it is a definition-based, we then have to kind of see a prompt that's been created, and we have to apply our understanding of an outline and understanding what an outline looks like to get the answer. Because if we don't understand what an outline is, we won't be able to apply that and apply that background knowledge that we need to answer this question. And of course, it is D, the Roosevelt Corollary. All right. And finally, this is, again, applying knowledge that we've learned, guys, to come to these conclusions. Why did some senators and many Americans oppose joining the League of Nations in 1918 and 1919? Well, here we go, okay? This is where we have to identify. We know the United States wanted to remain neutral. They wanted to remain isolated. That is why. So if we know that, we now have to apply that information, but in, here we go, different words, we have to understand that here is the meaning, and what of these is that same meaning seen. They did not want the U.S. to get entangled in alliances with foreign nations, okay? B, they wanted harsher terms for Germany, all right? C, they opposed reparations for allies. And D, they believed that the League of Nations would stop technological progress in personal computers and the development of the internet. Well, of all those, what sounds like remaining neutral, staying isolated? If you said A, you would be correct. They did not want to get entangled. What is entangled? What is an alliance with foreign nations? Entangled is when you are, like when you pull your earbuds out and if you don't have the AirPods anymore, and this rope right here is all tangled up, okay? That means you have an alliance. We know what an alliance is. And those alliances bring you into foreign conflict. So, guys, we just answered about 6 questions and it took about 10 minutes. It takes time. You have to apply information. You have to be mentally prepared for when you take these tests. Again, that's it. I just wanted to apply this video to make sure that you have that you understand some of the stuff we're going to see on the test. And always remember to smile. It's contagious.